Good morning and welcome to this EU Clusters talk. The European Cluster Collaboration Platform enables us to come together in these fascinating series of discussions that enables clusters to access expert information and to talk together as a network about how we can promote and support business and growth across Europe. In this particular Clusters talk, we're looking forward very much to discussing the European investment agenda and how we can mobilise capital for innovation and for industrial transformation. I'm looking forward to our panel of speakers and to hearing from Kalin, who will be making a presentation about one of those very important instruments. We know that the quantity and quality of investment is at the heart of competitiveness, of sustainability and of innovation. And the European investment agenda recognises that vital role. It seeks to mobilise public and private sources of financing together to support industrial transformation, to support green and digital transition, and to support companies that wish to scale up and to innovate. So instruments like InvestEU, the Global Gateway, or the new European Innovation Agenda help to create opportunities for European businesses. But it's never easy sometimes for businesses to know what those opportunities are and to access them and to bring them together. So clusters are a key network for businesses to enable them to access these funding opportunities. So I'm very much looking forward to our discussion. Do please participate. You can do so through the question and answers. We will have a Slido question shortly after we've heard from Kalin to give you an opportunity to tell us about what the obstacles to accessing finance are. Do use the chat as well. We know at these talks people use the chat very positively to share links and information with each other. And do please note that the session is being recorded. But if I may, I'd like very much to start by giving Nina Hopman news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Nina, good morning. What's the news?
Good morning, Andrew, and good morning to everyone. We have quite some items to share with you. First of all, we are happy to share with you a survey that is launched today for help shaping the European Cluster Conference 2026. It's foreseen to be held in November next year, and you have until the 12th of November to share with us your ideas on the topics. There you will see in the survey there's already pre-selection of topics that you can sort into priorities, any speaker suggestions and recommendations that you would like to give to us to shape the European Cluster Conference next year. So please have a look at the survey and give us your feedback, and this will be considered for defining the program. Also, in line, very interesting, the Commission has yesterday published the Work Program 2026, where there is an outline of series of actions to help build a sovereign and independent Europe with over 38 new policy objectives. We have over 25 out of 47 legislative initiatives that have significant simplification dimension, and many proposals that are contained in this work program. So have a look at it. It is published online. Also, the annual report for the Recovery and Resilience Facility was published. It is coming to the 2026 deadline, and the report gives an insight on where we stand, what kind of results and impact has the RRF already received, and what kind of milestones the project. And it is also seen that we still need to do and fast track the implementation until the deadline. So member states are requested to do so as well as in the report. So have a look at it. It is also published online, so you can see where we stand on the RRF implementation. And another report, the midterm evaluation of the cohesion policy programs from 21 to 27, is also published. It makes an assessment of the different programs, looking at the implementation of the ERDF, of the Cohesion Fund, and also of the Just Transition Funds, and take stock on its implementation, the uptake of main legal novelties, also the consequences of recent context and legal changes. This is also published, so have a look at this report. We're talking today about investments, and the ECCP has still an open investment survey, a very quick one where you can let us know about any major investments that were attracted by European clusters. And the aim is to showcase the impact of cluster organizations to foster investment activities and regional development. So if you have 5 minutes, just click on this link in the chat with the access to the survey and let us know. We will take this into account for this year's European Cluster Communication Platform. And of course, last but not least, there's still many events coming up this year. Next week, we will be in Kuopio, Finland with the cluster collaboration, with the CITO Lab, Cluster Collaboration Lab. And we will have Clusters Meet Regions events and ECCP matchmaking. So there will be the one in Spain in November. Apologies, I see on the slide is still Portugal that was in the pipeline, but unfortunately this was cancelled. But the next opportunity is Germany at the end of November and Copenhagen in December. A lot of great events coming up as well, where you can still register for. And with that, I hand over back to you, Andrew, so that we can get started with the topic of the day.
Nina, thank you very much. A lot for us to get our teeth into amongst those many reports and the work programme being published. Thank you. Let's turn, if I may, to Kalin Danilescu, who is Policy Officer in DG GROW with responsibility for access to finance issues. Kalin, you're very welcome. And you're going to talk to us about the European Innovation Council. We're looking forward to that. Please, Kalin, over to you.
Good morning, Andrew, and good morning, colleagues, and many thanks for the opportunity to introduce you today the European Innovation Council Accelerator, which is an instrument supposed to back visionary entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. All right, so I just want to give you a short snapshot of what the EIC Accelerator is meant to do. Well, traditionally, the European Commission would fund companies, would support companies indirectly, essentially via guarantees. But since some 5 years, we innovated and we created an instrument, the EIC Accelerator, which is supposed to support important innovation in Europe. So, well, what kind of projects are we supporting? We're supporting high impact innovation. We support deep tech companies. The project should be too risky to be taken along by private investors. And the project / the company needs to be to be in need of significant funding to scale up. Next slide. So in this slide, I wanted to present a general overview of what the EIC Accelerator is offering. And we will go into details in the following slides, but just to give you a short introduction, we support single applications, we support deep tech, we have 2 approaches. One is bottom-up, one is top-down. I'm speaking here about the open and the challenge-based calls. We support companies with blended finance, meaning with grants and equity. Very important compared to other programs, actually, we support single applicants and no need to set up a consortium. And we have also various business support services like coaching, mentoring, learning, and so on. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's start with some eligibility criteria. So who can apply to the EAC Accelerator? I already said that this program is open to single companies, so no need to have a consortia. We welcome SMEs, and that applying company should be aligned with the EU definition, meaning like 200 employees and less than 50 million euro or 43 million euro in balance sheet. Because we support also scale up, so we support also we accept small mid caps, meaning companies up to 499 employees. And as a matter of fact, in a way, innovation, this program is also open to natural persons, supposing that other criteria are met. The applicants should come from the member states or from any associated country to the Horizon Europe program. But in the same time, we open the program to companies coming from non-associated country if they intend to establish a footprint in Europe, in one of the member states or in one of the associated countries to Horizon Europe. Next slide, please. Okay, now what kind of instruments are we providing to all these companies? So essentially, we help the companies to de-risk the technology from very early stage. So in our terms, actually, this means low technology readiness level. And we help that with a grant and non-repayable form of finance. And after that, we can support the company with equity. And in our vocabulary, it means that we help the company with an equity, meaning that we offer company capital in exchange of shares. But if the TRL level of the technology is advanced, we can also support the company with equity only. So it very much depends on the technology readiness, and based on that, the company can set what kind of support the company intends to ask for. Next slide. In this slide, I wanted to highlight a real-life example of what exactly we do fund. In my introduction slide, I was referring to deep tech technologies, but deep tech technologies are not always easy to define. And I try to put in this slide a matrix of the combination of the technology risk and the market risk. So in the let's say bottom left corner, if I take a pure example, Zalando 2.0, or let's say Amazon 2.0 or Meta 2.0, doesn't matter. It means like in that particular corner, we don't have the risk of the market because the market is there. And the technology is also well known. We just need to have, let's say, better algorithms and potentially a more impactful sales force. So this kind of technologies we don't really fund because, again, there is no market failure and not certainly an European market failure. If I go up there in the cancer treatment example, again, I'm insisting that is just an example. We still have the risk of the technology, but we have the market in the sense that the governments, they pay a lot actually for these kind of technologies, but for the time being, we don't have a pill that would treat that. And we support that, but also it's very much depending on the kind of the technology. And if I go on the other corner, where I referring to the blindness treatment, again, is just an example. For instance, there is a treatment on the market to sort out the blindness in people, but for the time being, it's too expensive and in this sense. I mean, like the market is not ready to take up that particular example. So we still need to wait for that market to be created, although again, the technology exists. So now when we combine the risk of the market and the risk of the technology, we reach into the territories of the deep tech. And here I'm referring to the four technologies which are defined for the time being as strategic for Europe, precisely quantum computing, biotech, semiconductors, and artificial intelligence. But this is just an example. Obviously, for all these technologies, the technologies, they still need research for a couple of years, maybe decades in some situations, but the market is not yet ready to take up these technologies. So when the two are combined, again, the risk of the market and the risk of the technologies, we have at this intersection, we have the deep tech, and this is exactly the kind of technologies / companies we want to support. Obviously, with technologies that are going into the other two corners, depending again on the kind of technologies proposed. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of the grant component and the investment component, we support the companies with a maximum 2.5 million for the grant, non-repayable form of finance. And the eligible costs are reimbursed up to a maximum of 70%. And the technology readiness level, and this is very important, should be between 5 or 6 up to 8. And in terms of the investment component, we support companies with equity of between 0.5 million and 10 million. And in terms of the instruments we provide, we speak here about equity and quasi-equity. And this quasi-equity essentially takes the form of convertible loans. And for equity only instruments, I'm like the TRL should be TRL 9, which is kind of the maximum. Very important because we want these technologies to scale up. And the ultimate reason of this program is to help companies to find funding in Europe and stay in Europe and create value in Europe and create ultimately a friendly venture capital ecosystem and so on. From 2025, we can support companies with equity only under the STEP program between 10 and 30 million. So that will be on top of the initial investment of up to 10 million. That's a brand new program. Well, not that much brand new because it's been around for almost one year. Next slide, please. So what are the general principles of equity funding, which is again the main innovation of this program? As I said already, the full philosophy, the whole philosophy of the program is to help the companies to deploy their scale up. And the way we want to do that is by crowding in private co-investment. If you are familiar with the venture capital industry, you know that anytime a company, a startup, needs money, the company will raise a round. And in that particular round, the EIC fund can participate, but it will participate together with a private investor, which is taking the lead of that particular round. And in some situations, quite rare, I must say, the EIC fund can lead the round, but we prefer the funding round to be led by experts, which will get a partnership with the EIC fund. And from this perspective, they will also save resources for next funding rounds. So all this to say that actually we participate with maximum 50% of the funding round, and in principle, the EAC fund does not lead the round. Very importantly, as we want to help companies to scale up, we can participate with follow-on capital. So we can have also some results for future rounds. And also note that actually the EIC fund, being a public investor, actually an impact fund ultimately, we invest their patient capital of let's say of a duration between 7 and 10 years, with a maximum duration of 15 years. Very important also for you to know is that the EAC fund does not take majority stakes. Actually, we take only up to 25%, and we help. So we support companies in two ways. Actually, let's put it differently. We have two streams of projects. We have either bottom up or top down. The bottom up projects are like open calls when the companies they can present their ideas, technologies, and we'll get immediately into the assessment process. But we also have what we call the challenges, meaning the important priorities of the commission. Over a year, we have in general between 4, 5, maybe 6. I mean, depending on the year, challenges, and under these challenges, we set specific goals for specific technologies like energy storage, like specific cancer treatment. We had during COVID, we had a call specific on COVID-related technologies and so on and so forth. So roughly speaking, so it's just a generalization. The EAC accelerator is supposed to take into consideration hundreds investments per year with a budget of roughly $500 million, which makes the EIC fund, as a matter of fact, one of the most important players in the VC ecosystem in Europe, with the aim of, again, supporting the whole industry and the whole ecosystem. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of the selection process, the good news about this program is the companies participating in the program, they have a good likelihood to succeed because they are assessed by, in a way, many pairs of eyes, if I can say so. So the initial projects are the projects are initially assessed by remote evaluators, and they need to give a go or a non-go. And if the project has three goes, the company, the entrepreneur is invited to have a full proposal, which is again assessed by 3 experts from the market. And if the company again succeed this step, they're invited for an interview, for a pitch with the jury members. And again, they have an assessment based on their expertise on that specific market, and they will decide whether the company can be selected for the next step, which is the due diligence step undertaken by the European Investment Bank, which is the advisor of the fund. Next slide, please. So once the company passed through all these 2 or maybe 3 processes, the company goes for the due diligence undertaken by our partner, the European Investment Bank. And at this moment, not only the technology, the company, the project, the team, and so on are checked, but also the know your customer compliance. And we pay very much attention to that because we we cannot play with the reputation of the Commission in making these kind of investments, obviously. And in terms of next steps, so if the European Investment Bank finds the project interesting, they will issue an investment recommendation, which includes the financing terms, including the term sheet proposed to the to the company. And this investment recommendation is presented to an advisory committee, which is composed of 3 representation of the VC industry, former entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, financiers, and so on. And the Commission is represented there with 2 observers. And finally, at the level, very important, at the level of the advisory committee, it's a debate around, it's a discussion around the technology and the company in general. And after this discussion, finally, the European Innovation Council fund manager takes the investment decision in full independence. This is very important because you need to know that the Commission is not at all involved in the investment decision whatsoever. And well, once the investment decision is taken by the fund manager, we move to the next steps, which is the investment agreement, the disbursement, and obviously the portfolio monitoring and the management, which is done by the fund manager, supported by the colleagues in the European Investment Bank. Next slide, please. Actually, this is my last slide, and I won't insist on that. I put here a couple of links to useful, let's say, websites, for instance, like the tip for applicants, also the guide for applicants, and we have also a page with frequently asked questions. And you can find a lot of information there. And the colleagues responsible with these, they will be more than happy to reply and support you throughout your process. In case you consider applying, I wish you good luck. And
thank you very much. Thank you, Kalim, for setting out that very important instrument. And I'm sure there are many of the clusters who will have amongst their member companies those who are interested in that. It's a significant scale and an important investment in new technology across Europe. Thank you for that. You'll see in the chat, you won't have had a chance to look at it. There's 1 or 2 questions which you might like to take the opportunity to respond to in the chat about the criteria for the assessment of technology readiness and the market, relevant market. But do, if you don't mind, having a look at those while we move on at present to ask all of our participants if you would give us your view about the main obstacles to accessing finance. So let's, if you can, please use the QR code to join Slido so you can respond to this question. We're just the one question with a number of possible responses. The question being, what in your view are the main obstacles to access to finance for MSMEs, so medium and small enterprises, in clusters looking to grow their businesses? So what are the obstacles to small and medium businesses looking to grow their businesses? And there are a number of options we've offered here. One is lack of longer-term bank finance. Another is lack of venture capital in particular sectors. The third is requirements to provide too much equity or security for loans. Fourth, obstacles to funding from other EU countries. That is a lack of a single financial market in Europe for SMEs. Fifthly, that investors are looking for too quick or too high a return. I slightly apologise. We put two things into there, but either both are aspects of the return that investors are looking for. Is it too fast or is it too great? And then a lack of a viable exit strategy, which of course is how investors are looking to exit from their investment. If there are other obstacles that you would like to say are in fact more important in accessing finance, do please use the final option, other, and put anything into that response that you wish to do so. Interestingly, not least because we've just been hearing from Calin about the availability of venture capital, and of course the technologies that he was talking about, there are open opportunities and also challenges for particular technology and particular sectors. So let's have a look at how people are responding to this. Many are saying that there is a lack of venture capital. A significant proportion are saying that investors look for too fast or too high a return. Longer term bank finance, not so many, but some feeling that that is lacking, that too much equity or security is being asked for those loans, a number feeling that. Not so many thinking that a viable exit strategy for the investors is an obstacle. So do please, if you wish, put into chat any of the additional views you may have on those particular obstacles. Let's turn, looking forward very much to hearing from our panelists. Let's turn to our panelists. We have an expert panel, and I will ask each of them in turn a question and an opportunity for them to tell us something about the ways in which their work is demonstrating the opportunities for businesses to access finance. Let's start, if I may, with Anne de Breton-Wolff, who is founder of ALW Finance and Innovation. Anne, you're very welcome this morning. Great pleasure to have you with us. Can you tell us something, please, about the extent to which European innovative businesses can access venture capital in Europe relative to other markets, perhaps notably, obviously, the United States? We've just seen from our Slido questions that the largest proportion of people feel that access to venture capital is one of the obstacles that many companies experience. Anne, if you'd be kind enough to tell us something about what your view is about access to venture capital.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for having me. It's a pleasure this morning, and I would like to introduce very briefly myself. I was trained as an engineer. I'm doing business angel investing since 2012, and I'm also an external expert on several EU programs, EIC among others. Now, to answer Andrew's question and also the concerns that were raised on Slidos, or at least issues that pop up firsthand, I would say it's you can view it from different side. In Europe, you have, for early stage startups, quite a lot of public aid, whether at regional, national, or European dimension. That is something that is very good and supportive for the first stages of a scale-up. Now, where there is a critical gap in funding is when you have double-digit funding rounds and you have to raise, let's say, 30 or 40 million euro. That becomes very tricky in Europe because you have to mobilize capital from huge VCs, which are not so many on the place. That, I think, would be the main difference with the US, is that for later stage funding for innovative startups, there is more capital available all along the way up to a Series D, E, or IPO. So that's one thing. But in Europe, we have the chance to have a lot of support, including public support for early stage startups. Now, what I've also seen on the market is that in general, business angel tickets are lower in Europe than in the US. It's picking up. The gap is being closed slowly, but in the US, the checks that are written by business angels, which are I would not say less risk averse, but are more prompt to invest more of their wealth into early stage innovative ventures than in Europe, is also something that is to take into consideration. Now, from what I've seen, given the present political and geopolitical context, more business angels in Europe are also prone to support in a kind of impactful step forward to support the whole ecosystem, but also to support society in general by funding new innovations. That is something that I've seen more and more, and that is valuable for the whole ecosystem because it drains not only capital, but it also drains smart money and willingness to support.
And thank you very much indeed. So, but just picking up on what you were saying, does it feel to you that there is a risk in Europe that when companies are scaling up and looking for more substantial funding rounds, that they are more likely to go to the United States as a consequence of that? Because that has implications for the long-term sovereignty, as it were, of industrial activity in Europe.
Yes, of course. Well, this is not new, but registering in Delaware, to name it, has been already the case for years. Now, I haven't seen a drain towards the US recently picking up. However, there is still some, I would say, some companies, some SMEs, especially from countries where the local ecosystems are not so developed, to register from the start, not in Europe, but directly online in the US. However, I see with this, with the discussion about the potential 28th regime, that this consideration is also brought to the table and could prove to be the, let's say, the light at the end of the tunnel that could open some new opportunities for startups to register in Europe and stay longer in Europe. However, of course, when you have this funding gap in later stages, there is the risk that funding would come mostly from the US, the Middle East, potentially from some countries in Asia as well, and then that those for non-EU registered entities. But at least for the very beginning or for the first steps, I see that more and more companies are staying in Europe, which is something that is positive. Europe, including UK, Switzerland, and Norway, of course.
Thank you very much. That's really interesting. Thank you, Anne. We'll come back to you later, time permitting. I hope we can come back to you. I have more questions that you've prompted by some of those interesting things you had to say. Thank you. Let's turn, if we may, please, to Daniel Stadler, Cluster Manager at the European Investment Network, working on quantum technologies in North Rhine-Westphalia. Is that correct? Yes. I wonder if I may, let's move to Daniel if we can. Daniel online, let's have a look. I was going to ask, Daniel, can you hear me? I was going to ask you about how good are banks or our institutional investors at assessing new technologies for investment. Clearly, one of those key aspects of what Kalin was talking about was the ability to assess technological risk and the relative maturity of technologies. And as a consequence of that, of course, the potential and the returns available on certain technologies and certain products. Daniel, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Super. I can hear you. I can see you. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was just saying, so how good are our banks and investors at assessing new technologies?
Well, in principle, they are well positioned when it comes to going with a lead investor. So the issue here is that often the public banks, I'm talking about public banks, not about private capital, because there is a difference on what they do and what they can't do. Mm-hmm. And there is, for instance, with us in North Rhine-Westphalia, we often observe that when a lead investor is found, or an NRW bank is investing pari passu, meaning the same amount or the same conditions, and hence doubling the investment amount that is collected. by the private capital. However, they need a lead investor, as they need a technical due diligence or due diligence in general that is proving them, okay, this is a serious investment that we can do here. And that is one thing how they can actually participate. And a second thing is there are certain limited partnerships in private-public investment vehicles, such as the high-tech Gründerfonds on German side, for instance, where also not the federal ministry, but or it is the federal ministry, so like the German Ministry of Economic Affairs is also invested in. So there are certain ways, but it is a lot of bureaucracy, and it's yeah. Well, you often refer to that we are risk averse here in Europe, and in principle, I read something that was quite smart from NATO, saying that actually risk is not what you want to take, but opportunities. And so the risk is what you can measure. There are certain risks going to the market, and this is not what you actually have to deal with. It's the uncertainty whether this technology will make it or not. So it's fine to be risk averse, but we need to be uncertainty open. And this is often not the typical, I'd say, bureaucratic way.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We were hearing from Kalin about one of the important instruments that are available to support venture capital funding. Can you perhaps add something to that by way of what other instruments you see being drawn upon? What kind of mechanisms or incentives do you see that appear to you to be amongst the most effective available presently in Europe?
The IC is one for sure, but IPSE is another one. So you can think about that the amount of grant money, not the amount of investment money that is given to a company, is actually amplifying the investment of a private investor. So you have a given amount, a given percentage that the startup has to collect to bring from their own money, wherever this may come from. But you have a vast amount of investment of money that is given to the startup, to the company, to develop a specific path in their go-to-market, like early stage. For instance, when we're talking deep tech, we're talking at a very, very early research state of lots of technologies. Quantum, for instance, there are no quantum computers available where you can actually have a broadband business case. So it's still a lot of prototyping. Hence, it's early in the technical development, and hence you can use public money in order of a grant agreement to develop something. This is one thing. So you have a non-dilutive amplification of the investment because the share remains the same, but it's not an additional investor that is actually coming in. It's money that is given to the startup to develop something specific that is crucial for their technical roadmap. So this is one important thing. Another one that we piloted here in Germany was, we called it kind of the public sector is your first customer. Like, as it is a prototype by European regulation, it is not helping in a drastically economic way, but we used our German Aerospace Center, for instance, as a hub for startups to sell quantum computers to them. It was like investment in principle in a large research infrastructure, which helps them to get the feet on the ground, to have first turnovers, and to have some money to be more attractive for investors to invest in. So these are additional vehicles that are there that are used not only in Germany but European-wide. And if we stream this could have an impact.
Thank you. That's all really interesting. We have had at previous EU clusters talks, obviously, discussed the ways in which public procurement can support businesses. I just wondered, in this context, presumably the public sector can not only, for example, the EIC accelerator that Kalin was talking about had specific challenge funds. So clearly that's quite often in circumstances where on something instance energy storage, the public sector is looking for solutions to problems. And in that context, of course, you can have not only an opportunity for investment, but also an opportunity for what might think of as an anchor customer.
Exactly.
So the combination of those things can be quite effective from the public sector point of view, and private capital will respond to that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what private capital to it is, first of all, how many customers do you have? That is one thing. You have the team and the cash flow. I mean, if the company does not, there is something going on too early or it's not attractive to the market. But if you can actually have a public customer, you have to overcome additional rules in contrast to a private customer, because there are regulations that need to be fulfilled and you cannot easily just spend public money. So once you have a public anchor customer, you can actually go to your investor and say, I secured a customer that is actually reliable, because public money is reliable money at the end of the day. Even though we often refer to it as a slow money, it's slow, but it's reliable.
That's very interesting. Thank you again. We may, if time allows, I'd like to come back once we've heard from our other panelists. Let me turn, if I may, to David Garcia Nunez, President of the Madrid World Capital of Engineering, Construction and Architecture. So that sounds like an absolutely fascinating organization. Perhaps if you would be kind enough, David, to tell us a little about that. But also, I wondered if I might ask you to tell us something about the extent to which across Europe there is a single market for finance, for funding SMEs. Can startups and scale-ups access the wider European market? Of course, when we look at comparisons with the United States, Europe is a big market, nearly something approaching the scale of the United States, but not yet in terms of venture capital funding on that scale. But are there possibilities to access funding across Europe?
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here with us. If you want, I talk in 1 minute, explain to us Madrid World Capital. Madrid World Capital.
Oh, please do. Yes, please do. Yes.
Madrid World Capital is a big association in Madrid. We have three target or objective. The scope is promote the invest in Madrid, in Spain, promote the brand of Madrid in the world, and of course, position Madrid and Spain was reference in urban solution project. Now we have 200 companies associated in this cluster. I am the reference in the cluster in Spain, and our scope is very clear. Position the sector, infrastructure, and architecture and engineering in the world. It's a big opportunity, and of course, we have the support to European cluster. Okay, in your question is very interesting, because now we have despite a notable advance in years ago, such as European Commission, Capital Markets Union initiative, which are meant to create a more financial landscape, a more financial instrument, a more financial tools, and it's important to the companies, it's important to the public administration, collaboration in this gap. It's necessary, of course, integrate the Europe. Sorry, Europe is still not a fully integrated, a single financial market for SMA. Different obstacles, different opportunities still stand in the way on European financial market, data and integration, and different efforts in the market. The business, we are looking for cross-border finance face inconsistencies and different complications due to be continued difference in financial legislation and taxes in different states of European Union. Investors and other capital must negotiate a cultural, linguistic, a different legal variation that make cross-border funding even more challenged. The access to financial is sometimes depends on the national banking system. For example, in Spain, it is very clear, and the different process in European Union.
Yeah.
However, different options are making to easier startups or scale-ups to obtain capital across European markets. For example, initiative for me is very positive to European Innovation Council, InvestEU in European Union, and Horizon Europe is a guarantee, equity capital to help to create a company, startups, and grow the company in the first steps. Furthermore, the growth of European crowdfunding platform and digital investment ecosystem is a progressive, and the barriers is catch up to national borders with European venture capital networks and investment funds are grow now in European Union. In conclusion, for me, the event of Europe is positive and making a progress toward creating a more cohesive and a more very easy accessible to financial market. The ecosystem is very fragmented in comparison for other markets, for example, in USA. And the cross-border funding is still difficult to obtain financial tools, and of course we need to change the regulatory to access these financial tools. Thank you so much.
Yeah, David. Thank you very much indeed. That's very interesting. And we will come back to you if I may. I have another question to ask you, but I think I just want to link just the points that you've been very helpfully making about accessing finance funding opportunities right across Europe, and turn, if I may, to James Wilson, who is from the Basque Institute of Competitiveness and has done a very fascinating study. The link will be in the chat. I wonder, James, if you could, in a way, that the question is, if you're looking for sources of finance, to what extent do you have to look very widely, or to what extent is your proximity to financial markets able to give you greater access to finance? So how does proximity impact upon access to finance?
Hi, thanks, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. Yes,
morning.
I work at the Basque Institute of Competitiveness. We're a research centre that works on regional competitiveness, working closely with the Regional Development Agency, SPRI of the Basque government on cluster policy, for example. And this is the issue you raise about whether proximity is relevant for finance is something that's been worrying us in the Basque Country for some time. And the study that you mentioned was an action research process that we have been working on over the last 2 or 3 years, which sought to get to that question directly. We have 16 industrial clusters in the Basque Country, in the Basque Country's cluster programme, and one of the things that we realised through the surveys that SPRI runs to cluster members regularly is that access to finance was was rising up the agenda of issues that was concerning the cluster members and the clusters. That on the one side. On the other side, we had a more of a political agenda, which noted our own financial services industry and our financial services ecosystem was progressively becoming weaker. So we did some research here at Orchestra to look at financial services in peripheral regions, and we found that there is this trend towards centralization of finance within Europe, within the world, in kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 regions in terms of the financial power that the ecosystem has. And as a peripheral region in the Basque Country, we were progressively over the last 2 or 3 decades losing power in terms of our own ability to finance within the region the projects of firms within the different clusters. So as a result of that, the question we asked was, well, could clusters themselves be a solution to this problem? Clusters are proximity-based institutions. They're working on the nexus between territory and proximity and economic development. So could clusters provide a solution to this? And clusters in individual industries traditionally have played a role, I think, in terms of helping their firms access finance through raising awareness to the types of programs and issues that we've heard today, through supporting their firms, through engendering collaboration, even through much more sophisticated kind of alliances and specialized financial solutions for their particular clusters. But if we're in a world where finance is becoming more centralized, that's increasingly difficult for cluster organizations to do in their individual sector, because it's difficult to connect to a financial system that is in moving to Madrid or moving to London or moving to other places. So what we asked in the Basque Country was, is it relevant as a solution, thinking about a financial services cluster itself, trying to develop a cluster organization or a cluster within the Basque Country that could strengthen the financial services sector and therefore provide a kind of transversal umbrella that supported the other industrial clusters within the region. And we approached this through an action research process together with SPRI, together with the Basque government, different departments of the Basque government, the finance department, the industry department. And we tried to bring together the financial actors that were in the Basque Country to see whether there was an interest and a rationale for developing a financial services cluster. Well, we also used the ECCP as some background for research for this, and we saw that amongst the 1,350, I think at the time, cluster organisations registered in Europe on the ECCP, only 6 worked in financial services industry. So the financial services clusters are not very common. Traditionally, clusters have been more of an industry-focused initiative. But what we found through this process of bringing together around 100 actors in the Basque Country through 4 different workshops to try and work out, well, was there potential here? We found that there was a potential. There were several challenges that were common across the financial sector that they saw they could work together in a kind of cluster approach in a way that could strengthen other clusters within the region. And that has resulted in the establishment last year of a financial services cluster called BasqueFIC, which is starting to operate in that basis. And one of its key missions, in a sense, is to strengthen the financial services ecosystem in the region in a way that can support the finance of other clusters within the region. So it's not seen as a uniquely industry-focused cluster in terms of its own competitiveness, but also in terms of fueling the competitiveness of other clusters within the region by helping their firms, particularly in the industry that we have in the Basque Country, in terms of accessing finance in this kind of peripherally difficult context. I'll put some links to the study and to the
yes, please,
so that you can get some more information on
James,
this in the chat. Can
I just ask, because to what extent, if is in creating such a financial services cluster, to what extent does that depend upon the availability of regional banks? I know in Spain there are more regional banks than would be true in some other countries. And to what extent are we talking about people who might be business angels, as it were, venture capital angels, or is one trying to get a regional aspect of what might otherwise be institutional investors with a much broader geographic remit?
I think it probably depends very much region by region, and this is why a cluster solution has to be tailored to the individual context of the region. In our context, there are regional banks. However, they've also been losing power in the sense within the system over recent years. What we found, we started this by doing a mapping, a traditional cluster mapping of all the different actors that could be part of a financial services cluster. And through that identification, we saw, for example, that in the Basque context, there was a rise in certain types of financial institutions, of family offices, for example, associated with investing funds from families associated with regional businesses, which provided a opportunity in our context to engage those in a different way within the system. In the Basque context, angel investors is not such a big part of the system, but that could be a gap that could be identified. So I think it really depends on the specific context, but I don't think regional banks unnecessarily have to be at the cornerstone of this. In regions that don't have strong regional banks, I think this could still be a useful approach. It just means mapping to understand what does exist within the region.
James, thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be many of our cluster colleagues listening to you who are hopefully inspired by that that thinking and your examples. And obviously the action research you'll be reporting as time goes on how that is developing. So that'll be really interesting in itself. Let me turn, if I may, to the last but not least, to amongst our panelists, to Stami Kritas, who is Cluster Manager at the Hellenic Bioindustry Organisation and Managing Director at the Council of European Bioregions. Stami, please, can you perhaps tell us a little about the work that you do there in Greece, and also perhaps tell us something about how, in your experience, how well do investors understand the long lead times and the costs of innovation, particularly in life sciences, which obviously is your particular focus of sector activity? How patient is European capital, Stemi?
Yes. Hi, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's always nice to have these discussions again and again. So as you said, I'm sharing my time between the Hellenic Biocluster, so the National Cluster of Life Sciences and Biotech in Greece, and CEBRA, the Council of European Bioregion, which is a network of 50 life sciences clusters across Europe. So we represent, through my involvement with CEBRA, of course, we see different ecosystems and different challenges and different gaps and different strengths, but in essence, everybody's sort of looking for the same thing, which is obviously investing. And when we're talking about life sciences, unfortunately, because of the length of time, well, fortunately or unfortunately, because of the length of time that these kind of products, biotech and medtech products, need to come to the market, obviously there are some limitations and some sort of, it makes the sector a little bit harder. I have to say that in Europe, at the moment, we have we've got some investors who are specific to our sector, who are patient. However, overall, I think the ones that are truly patient are a lot less. So what we see is there is a gap between the capital needs of the sector and the risk of the expectation of the investor to actually have, their return. We do have, I have to say that in Europe, we've got some specialized funds, for example, Sofinova Partners, but these are few and they are smaller in comparison to the US, because you had a question and spoke about the US before. So that's something that we need to take into consideration. Here in Europe, we have limited funds, institutional LP, for example, pension funds. This is something that now we see that the conversation has started. And for example, the Dutch pension funds, some Dutch pension funds are starting to look into that. But that's again, something that puts us sort of behind the US. There is a regulatory and a fragmentation sort of complex, like a regulatory complex framework when we're talking about medtech especially, and that I don't believe that the tickets are smaller in Europe, but because there is uncertainty about the timing and the timeline of when, for example, medtech products are going to come to the market because of the limitations in framework in the regulatory framework. Or the slow regulatory framework, I should say. There is uncertainty from the investors, so they're very hesitant to actually invest. And Europe has a risk aversion culture, as we know. I mean, I think Daniel said, I think it was Daniel that said that that's not necessarily a bad thing. Well, when we're talking about life sciences, I think it sort of impedes our development. But there are, steps to the right direction. So now we have the European Investment Fund. We have specific funds, specific focus in life sciences. For example, here in Greece, well, I'm in Romania at the moment, but in Greece, up to now, we had agnostic funds which were doing some investment in life sciences, but now we have dedicated life sciences funds. So they're great because they can actually provide the bigger tickets. They've got sort of the knowledge and the knowledge to provide to the startups and the scale-ups, because I think that's important. It's not just the money. We need from the investors, not just the money, but the understanding to guide these the innovators to the right direction, to the right markets, and to the next steps. Of course, because I represent clusters, and clusters, I breathe clusters. Clusters are pooling expertise. We're trying to obviously educate the innovators, the SMEs, the startups on one hand in order how to access capital better, to form their strategies better. But on the other hand, we pull investors from the other side, and we're trying to educate them as well in the expectations and the challenges that the sector has. Clusters form collaborations, and it was great to have, EIC here, because obviously EIC Accelerator is a great tool. The clusters prepare some of our members to actually apply for this, and then help them find the 30%, of funding or financing that they require. But on the other hand, through collaborations, I am in Romania now because we are forming alliances and partnerships with other clusters. So we're trying to, bring members together to make co-investment plans and work them together, because of course, they can access public funding, they can access mixed funding. We are here to guide them and help them not only pull their expertise, but sort of be attractive to investing. A limitation again is that Series B for life sciences is very thin in Europe, and then that's why we see quite a lot of the brain drain when it comes, especially to drug development or new therapies or cell therapies. They tend to move away from Europe in order to access more money. But hopefully now, with all these strategies in place, with Choose Europe, with the new strategy, we can retain them in order to not just create innovation, but sort of retain innovation in Europe and sort of having the scaling up and the productions that we want.
Stami, can I just ask, that's all very interesting. Can I just ask, to what extent is the regulatory environment in Europe, does it have an impact on the choices that particularly scale-ups make about where they seek investment and where they seek to establish and pursue their scale-up? Clearly the European Commission is engaged in a substantial process of regulatory simplification, and that in itself hopefully will be very helpful. But does the simple fact that sometimes the first market into which a new medicine is going to be launched is likely to be through the FDA and in America, how much of an impact does that have upon the underlying investment for that technology in the first place?
Well, it has an impact. And if we're looking, the Commission has conducted a survey on SMEs and micro SMEs. Now that's a new term that we're using, which is the backbone of competitiveness in Europe. I think we have something like 40,000 SMEs across Europe. So the strength is there in the smaller players. And what we see, there was an EY survey that was conducted on behalf of the Commission, a survey, to asking SMEs across Europe if the regulation has impacted them, and why and how much. And the results are very clear. It has impacted. I'm talking about MDR, IVDR. I'm talking about medical technology here, medtech, just to sort of pick one subsector of life sciences, where Europe has the potential to be a leader. So, for example, the new regulation has impacted the smaller players because there are strengths in the notified bodies, in how quickly we can have access to that, how quickly we can get the certifications, the cost. So when it comes to an investor who says, great, there is a fantastic medtech startup in Greece or in Denmark or Belgium, they have a product. What is the timeline? When is this product going to come out? Because we have to understand that investor life cycles in Europe are a little bit smaller than in the US. They're probably around the 6 to 8 to 10 years. So they have to make a return in investment in that very short time, which is again a limitation for us, for our sector. So they look at the timeline, they say, okay, how quickly can regulation, we can go through regulation and this product can be to the market. And in many times, in many settings, there is no clear answer. So if I was an investor, I would go towards something that I would know that there is a clear timeline. That's why quite a lot of medtech innovations are leaving, or up to now, they were leaving Europe, going to US, because they could go to Delaware, for example. I think Anne mentioned Delaware. Everybody has been talking about Delaware. They can go, and they've got a clear timeline through the FDA that in 9 months they will have, you know, a response. There is a structured process. They know what to expect. They know how to prepare, and therefore, you know, it's easier for them to sort of tackle the US market and then eventually come back to Europe. So that is not something that we want. So it's a multifactorial sort of discussion, but it's great to have this, and it's great to have cross sectors discussing this, because obviously life sciences has its own characteristics. But if we have a cross sector conversations, I think that will help the mentality or the mindset shift that we need in Europe.
Very good. Thank you very much, Stami. That's really very interesting, very insightful. Thank you. Can I just turn back to Daniel, if I may, with a question. We've heard about how clusters can facilitate the opportunities for businesses to secure their investments. Can you tell us, from the cluster point of view, how do clusters understand themselves, understand the technology, the level of technological readiness, the particular environment within which they're working? How, if you're a cluster manager, as you are, how do you go about the process of dealing with what can be very innovative and potentially, of course, very new technologies?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, let me please comment to the point from Stemi. Yes, I said it's good to be risk averse, but we need to be chance open. So risks and opportunities are different in this regard. So we need to have the opportunity, not knowing whether this technology will make it to the market, but we need to be still risk averse in order to have that nugget in our hands. So yes, we need to be more brave if we can come to that. What the role in clusters? Well, the thing is, in one of our last talks, I already said that we are kind of a road between innovators. So like, we are an infrastructure where information can travel extremely fast, faster than you can find it on the internet, because the internet is getting more and more information on a very point, and even ChatGPT cannot extract you the finest details of technology that you need to understand whether this investment is the right choice for you or not. So often we're dealing with investors that are looking for an investment in startups, so we can either bring them together, we can foster events, we have an own accelerator program actually that is dedicated to deep tech innovations that had a long return on invest and long innovation cycles. But on the other hand, you can also help actually those venture capitalists to better understand the business case, to understand the technical details, because you are in contact with research and entrepreneurs and policy. So you can understand all three matrices that you need in order to make that sweet spot investment that you're actually looking for. And secondly, you can also help startups to be investment ready, because deep tech in particular, which is a knowledge-based innovation, often comes out of a university, of a research institute. It's rather unlikely that it is spinned out of a company that already has business intelligence. So quite often people are trying to sell a technology, but you do not sell a technology. You actually sell a benefit that is given to you by the technology, because technology itself, it's fascinating, but you can't make a business with the technology. You make business with use of technology. And that is a very interesting and very important mind shift that has to take place, and that you can provide as a cluster, bringing research and
that's very interesting. That's just exactly what the marketing men always say: sell on the benefits, not on the features. So that's quite important. But I mean, that's a very important point you're making about how cluster managers can help the businesses, because very often what you have is somebody who has a great level of enthusiasm and expertise about their technology, but that doesn't mean they can necessarily put together a business proposition, and the clusters can help them a great deal with that.
And what I always tell these people is, we're looking for a use case. I can use my smartphone here to nail a nail to the wall, but that is not the business case of that thing.
Yes, it's not advisable though, is it?
Oh, yeah, you can do it, but it's a very, very costly business case for you, but maybe Apple can make it.
I wonder if I could just ask Anne, perhaps our last question with the panel, Anne, please. Would you say, Anne, that great ideas and great products will always going to be funded, and can they always be funded in Europe?
That's a tricky question, but I would add the team. For me, it's about product market fit, but it's also about the team. Because entering the market, whether in Europe or in the US, you have to be resilient, you have to be patient, but also demonstrate vibe and willingness. And I would say that not everything is, let's say, fundable by everyone. Everything can get funded, but you have to find the right partners, the people who have the same investment curve that matches with your technology and your go-to-market strategy. And so that's an exercise that I would advocate for, is do your homework first before reaching out to investors to see where is the best match, not to get rebuffed too many times, because that's a loss of time and energy, but try to figure out who would be the best investors, and keep in mind that it's about the technology, about potential market fit, but also about the team. And as a business angel, but I think even in the VC, in later stages VC, the team is the most important criteria people look at before investing.
And thank you very much. And can I say a big thank you to all of our panelists, who I think have all been really fascinating and collectively have given us a real insight into how clusters can facilitate investment opportunities for their startup and scale-up businesses. Thank you all very much indeed. Can I turn, if I may, I know all of our participants are always keen to hear from, talking of funding opportunities, to hear from Nina about what funding opportunities are available to clusters. So Nina, would you be kind enough perhaps to just update us on funding opportunities?
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks to everyone for the interesting discussion. We would just wanted to highlight a few calls that might be interesting for the clusters to participate in. The first one is called Expanding Investment Ecosystems. This is a call that aims to increase cross-border venture capital flows into emerging and moderate innovative regions, helping the local startup expand into stronger EU markets and bridging the gaps to later stage financing, which is an issue as we've also heard today. So with a project of at least 2 years, eligible activities can be market orientation programs for investors and startups, assistance for investors through the investment process, roadshows, peer matchmaking, networking, and also best practices and recommendations for regulators to ease cross-border investments. The deadline for this is the 20th of January. You have the topic ID here in the screen and the link in the chat. Scaling up deep tech ecosystems, Daniel has mentioned the deep tech. We are looking at a call that seeks to strengthen inclusive, interconnected, and efficient innovation ecosystems by linking actors, regions, and resources through collaboration between the innovation leaders and less advanced territories to boost in competitiveness, sustainability, and cohesion. So the challenges that can be addressed under this call are reducing the reliance on fossil fuels, increasing global food security, mastering digital transformation, improving healthcare, and achieving circularity. Same deadline, 20th of January, with the topic ID here on the screen and the link in the chat. And there's a call with a deadline until the 12th of November, so only very short time to prepare, but still an interesting call, which is labeled the uptake of acceleration services. We're looking at the market uptake of EU-funded security research by providing specialized services and advisory support to SMEs, startups, and security practitioners. So projects are expected to accelerate innovation uptake within the security ecosystem, a self-sustained service mechanism acting as a market catalyst, stronger collaboration between research, SME startups, and security practitioners, and improved technology transfer and market access for innovative solutions. This call is also published on the EU Funding and Tenders portal, and if you're interested in it, have a look. The link is in the chat. Thanks, and back to you.
Nina, thank you very much. Interesting, that latter one. The security ecosystem is a relatively new concept, but an indication of the uncertainties of our present age. But I do want to say a very big thank you to all of our participants. Do bear in mind that there are further opportunities for the cluster talks on the 5th of November, the Life Sciences and Biotech in Europe, discussion about the policies, the clusters, the way ahead. Also then a fortnight later, 19th of November, Joint Cluster Initiative presenting the new Euro clusters. That sounds like an interesting opportunity for all of our cluster members. So do bear in mind those additional talks. It has been a fascinating discussion, and that discussion can be continued through the platform on the general discussion group. Do please continue that discussion there. And we know that this is used by all of our cluster members to provide a network so that they can learn from each other and pick up on some of those really good opportunities that are out there, of which we heard some during our panel. Final big thank you to Calin for his excellent presentation, to each of our panelists for their great contributions, but not least a very big thank you to all of you for being here with us today to listen to the panel and to participate in the discussion through the Slido and through the chat. Thank you all very much indeed for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again on the 5th of November discussing life sciences. Thank you all very much indeed, and have a very good day.